And James Giles is well known to regular viewers of the show, but you knew him when he was a boy. Now he's the youngest councillor in the country, and he's even more wise than he was before. And he joins me now, as he will regularly, to review the British political scene. James, many congratulations from all of us at the mother of all talk shows. It was a splendid council victory, and I know that you'll go on to greater and greater things. But how do you see the current political juncture in which we have, in my view, the worst government that we have ever had and the worst opposition that we have ever had, both sitting in Parliament at the same time? And the third wheel, the Liberal Democrats, are perhaps the most pitiful of all. How did we get here?
Well, it's a very strange situation, isn't it, George, where we have a Prime Minister that is being referred to the Privileges Committee for misleading the House. We have a Labour Party where the RMT unions say that the leader isn't representing working people. I mean, the Labour Party not representing working people. It's just staggering, isn't it? And we've got the Liberal Democrats sort of teetering along there in third place with just over a dozen MPs to their name, not really making any meaningful difference or contribution to the House of Commons. I think the political situation in this country has never been more dire. I think one of the first times we met, you used the phrase, if I may say, two cheeks of the same backside. But never has it been more appropriate to use that term than it is today. It's absolutely insane. You've got a Prime Minister that's limping on. 34 Tory MPs now publicly have questioned Boris Johnson's position. And it's a very odd situation. Although the one thing I will say to the Liberal Democrats is that they have been incredibly lucky these past few months in the by-elections that have come up due to Tory scandals. Tiverton and Honiton, which is going to the polls in a few weeks' time, they may even cause a third upset in a row there after Chesham and Amersham and North Shropshire. And that, I personally think, might be the final nail in Boris Johnson's coffin. So we're at a very odd time politically at the moment. I think we're in a bit of a void. But it's looking like, Boris may well now finally be on his way out. And then politics might just get moving again. It'll either get better or it'll get worse. We'll have to wait and see.
It's jolly bad luck that just when we needed the best men and women and measures, that we've got the worst men and women. I'm thinking Liz Truss here subconsciously. And measures which are... well, how shall I put it? Bread and circuses. Talking of measures, we've got the Queen's crown back on the pint glass. That won't put, of course, any potatoes on the plate. It won't fill anybody's car. And for those that can't even afford to go out for a drink, they'll never see the crown. It's jolly bad luck for us, isn't it?
It certainly is. I mean, this announcement about imperial measures coming back, Boris Johnson wheeled this pledge out in 2019 in the general election when it was looking as though Farage's Brexit party might have had a real impact before they chose to stand down their seats. It's an announcement that seems to come earlier and earlier every year. It gets wheeled out whenever the Conservatives are in trouble. The flag-waving patriots of a certain age say, yeah, I remember how it was back in my day before the metric system. And of course, nothing ever happens. But let's say this time it does. As you say, what does that mean to an ordinary working person? It means absolutely nothing. We've had another mini budget from Rishi Sunak this week, unveiling a further £15 billion of support, dancing in a way to Labour's tune, actually. Very unusually, they've spent weeks, months, the Conservatives, saying they were against a windfall tax on energy companies, on their profits. And of course, they've now done a complete about turn and a steamrolling ahead with that, although they can't quite bring themselves to use that phrase. Now, that obviously will provide some support to those who need it. but it'll also provide support to people who don't. A large amount of the money that's been allocated will go to people that own second homes, third homes, the ultra rich. And what the government are doing, in my view at least, isn't sufficiently targeting those funds to the people who need it most, to those who can afford to go out, enjoy meals, enjoy luxuries. I was about to use the phrase shop at Waitrose, but I appreciate many of your viewers may not realize what that term means. But to those who can afford the luxuries in life, they'll also be getting at least £400 of support from the government, which is, no mean discount when in the grand scheme of things.
Quite so. Now, going back to Boris Johnson's problems in Parliament, it was thought, including by me, that he was out of the woods so far as no confidence vote was concerned. But he seems to have slipped back into trouble over that. And as you say, 34 people have either put letters of no confidence in or have publicly stated that they feel he should go. How many of such people does there need to be? And what would it take, do you think? Mrs. Thatcher obviously stood down and she won a ballot. She just didn't win it by enough. Would Boris Johnson take a different line? Would he not care if he got through a vote of confidence, even by one vote? He'd carry on and on and on.
Well, prime ministers, of course, once you've reached the highest office in the land, it would take a lot for someone to choose to go. I mean, in Mrs. Thatcher's case, of course, she was fatally wounded, at least politically speaking, but one would have to be dragged, typically kicking and screaming, from Downing Street. There obviously is no higher office. Yes, as you say, 34 MPs have publicly questioned the prime minister's position. I would caveat that of those, a number have said now isn't the right time for Boris to go. Douglas Ross, the leader of the Scottish Conservatives, being one such person, saying Boris needs to go, but not until after the Ukrainian situation has passed. 24 Tory MPs, though, have publicly called on Boris to go, including some really senior figures. Sir Roger Gale, first elected in 1983, calling upon him to go for misleading the House. And Roger Gale is a stickler for the rules and how things should be. A number of newer MPs as well, Anne-Marie Morris saying it's insulting. It's up 9, I think, crucially, publicly at least, since the Sue Gray report. And it's important probably for your viewers and listeners to be aware that obviously Tory MPs don't have to publicly state they're putting in a letter. It is a secret letter. So the magic number is 54. We're up to 24 that we know have submitted full-on letters. And there's over 350 Conservative MPs. And my question is, well, where are the other people living? Are they on cloud cuckoo land? I mean, it should only take for someone with an ounce of intelligence, dare I use the imperial measure, to realise that from a Conservative point of view, Boris Johnson is not the man to lead them into the next election, is not the man to get the country through this crisis. They would have to have less than an ounce of intelligence, not to realise that this is surely the case, and that for the sake of their own party, yet alone the country, you need to rip the Band-Aid off and actually say it's time for a new leader. Who that would be, of course, is another question. But Boris, I think, really...
Well, it's a big question, though, isn't it? It's a big question, though, isn't it? Because Boris Johnson undoubtedly won votes for the Conservatives that no other Conservative leader could have won. He did it when he won twice the mayoralty of London, an overwhelmingly Labour city, and he did it in the general election 2019, winning seats in places that had never before in history voted for the Conservatives. So knock him out and put in who exactly?
Well, that is the big question. I think Rishi Sunak will be hoping that his package of, in effect, mass handouts will win him back some favour He had, of course, been the runaway favourite to succeed Boris Johnson, earning the name Dishy Rishi in the press. But his own tax affairs having been made public, his wife having non-Don status and not paying tax in this country, really, I think, has affected his chances. Priti Patel clearly fancies herself for the job, but I think will just be utterly toxic. And even I think diehard Conservatives realise that she's not the lady to take us forward. She's not the new Iron Lady, and I don't think she ever will be. Which, of course, leaves us with the third sort of frontrunner, which is Liz Truss, who's the Foreign Secretary. Now, Liz originally, I think, kicked off a bit too soon when the furore around Partygate first started up. Liz Truss was holding events called Fizz with Liz with Tory backbenchers and perhaps being a little bit too open and candid about her clear ambition to become the next leader of the Conservatives and the next Prime Minister. She models herself as the next Mrs. Thatcher, the new Iron Lady, replicating some of Mrs. Thatcher's most famous sort of photo shoots in the press. And so Liz Truss is well regarded, I think, amongst the Conservative membership. She's done, by Conservative standards, a not bad job as Foreign Secretary, negotiating trade deals and what have you. And so if I were a betting man, I'd be putting my money at the moment on Liz Truss, but it's a very volatile situation.
Well, I am.
We may find out something tomorrow.
Yeah, indeed. I am a betting man, and my money's on a complete outsider, 40-1. Her name is Penny Mordaunt. Don't forget her, because if she wins, I'm retiring. I'll make a very, very handsome package of money in golden guineas. James Giles, wonderful to have you back on the show. I hope that we can make it regular. Thank you indeed.